July of 2007, I was diagnosed with a benign brain tumor the size of a lemon, and I was supposed to be a freshman in high school. After a battery of tests and not knowing what was going on, they finally found my tumor on July 24th, and on the 20th, and on July 24th, I had 9 hours of surgery with complications. My doctor says that I had a stroke on the table, and what's scary is he said that it would have happened whether or not they had found a brain tumor. And so if they hadn't found it, one day I would have just passed out and had this horrible brain bleed, and I mean, I can't even think of what would have happened, all the damage that it was caused. So it was really a miracle that I was having brain surgery at the time that my body decided to have a stroke. And then 2 weeks later, I was up and walking. I had suffered paralysis on my right side due to the surgery, and I was ready to go back to school. I was surpassing all expectations, and everyone thought that I was basically going to be a-okay and have smooth sailing from there. And then about 3 months later, around Thanksgiving, I started to get sick again. So around Thanksgiving of 2007, I started to feel tingling in my left foot, and we went to my neurosurgeon, and he said, "There's something wrong. I was nowhere near that part of your brain. I'm gonna refer you to a neurologist." And after about a month and a half of doing a bunch of tests, they finally decided that I had an autoimmune disease, but they didn't know what it was, and they didn't know how to treat it, and they knew that it wasn't good. So December 12th of 2007, I checked back into the hospital. I was paralyzed except for 3 fingers on my left hand, completely immobile, and all of this just started from random tingling in my foot. It was so completely random that the doctors don't even think that it was related to my surgery, which in my mind is just crazy. That 2 of these things could happen, you know, months within each other and have them not even be related. And so after 45 days in the hospital, I checked out in late January, and I was on high-dose steroids because they realized that that was one of the only treatments that wouldn't A, kill me, or B, make me sicker. And so I went home on high-dose steroids, and then that May in 2008, I started 6 rounds of chemotherapy, and that actually killed my, well, they say killed my disease. It made it go away. And I've only ever had 2 relapses since then. God always has a purpose and a plan, no matter how bleak the situation may be. I remember one of my darkest moments was when I was in the hospital in December, and I was getting a treatment that was experimental, and my blood pressure actually bottomed out at 60/40, and they called the crash cart, and I mean, we really didn't know if I was going to survive, and I got discharged because they wanted me to spend my last Christmas at home. And in all of those moments, the only thing that you can do is just run to the feet of Jesus, because what else do you have to grab onto? I mean, I remember talking to my mom, you know, I would never know how people get through this who don't have faith or who don't have, you know, a relationship with the Lord, because that is really the one thing that has carried not only me but my entire family throughout this process, is just, you know, resting in His promises and that He does know what's going on and it will get better. While all of this was going on, I was starting my freshman year of high school, and if you have ever been a freshman in high school or just a girl at 14 years of age, you know exactly what's going on. You start to get worried about your appearance and what you're going to look like and how others can perceive you, and oh my gosh, am I going to have a date to the dance, or what if he doesn't ask me out, you know, what am I going to do? And even though I was sick, I was still having all of these feelings. Just because, you know, I was physically removed from the situation doesn't mean that I was emotionally removed from the situation. And it was honestly really hard for me to go through that, because I found myself questioning, well, why is this happening to me? Why me? Why couldn't I, have experienced high school? Why couldn't I just be normal? I didn't really understand what the Lord's purpose was. And my mom says that I've only ever asked her why. Why me? Like running to her being like, I don't understand, Mom, do you have anything that you can tell me? And both times she said to me, this is your platform, and this is what you're going to use to reach people through the Lord, and this is how you're going to build your testimony. And so even in those times, where my hair wasn't right, or my hair was falling out because of the chemo, or, I gained a bunch of weight because of the steroids, I was really comforted in the fact that, this isn't for nothing. God always has a purpose and a plan. No matter how bleak the situation may be. I remember one of my darkest moments was when I was in the hospital in December, and I was getting a treatment that was experimental, and my blood pressure actually bottomed out at 60/40, and they called the crash cart, and we really didn't know if I was going to survive, and I got discharged because they wanted me to spend my last Christmas at home. And in all of those moments, the only thing that you can do is just run to the feet of Jesus, because what else do you have to grab onto? I remember talking to my mom, I would never know how people get through this who don't have faith, or who don't have a relationship with the Lord, because that is really the one thing that has carried not only me but my entire family throughout this process, is just resting in His promises, and that He does know what's going on, and it will get better, and it's perfect now. I've always said from the beginning, people have come to me and they said, well, if you could take it back, would you? If God were to say, okay, here's one path, and this is all the people you're going to reach being sick, and this is another path, and this is all the people that you may or may not reach because you're healthy, I would choose sick every single time, just because of all the people that I've not only reached but have touched me throughout this whole process. And if me being sick means that another kid doesn't have to be, then I'll do it 100%. And just resting in the Lord's promises has been incredible. Now, I know some of y'all are probably going, well, she was going through high school when all this happened, what did you think of her? Was she treated differently? And yes, I was treated differently, and some days I just wanted to be normal and just like everyone else. But the way that people treated me, it wasn't a bad different. It was a, oh my gosh, how can I help you? You have ministered to me, not even, trying to, just through your life. I first came to Briarwood and was introduced to everyone at Briarwood when I transferred there in the 8th grade. And we were new to town. We had just moved from Kansas. And so I honestly did not know a soul coming into my 8th grade year at Briarwood. And while everyone was really welcoming, and it was incredible to see, how everyone was kind of interested to get to know the new girl, ooh, who is she? She's not, she's not a part of the 12-year club. We didn't grow up with her. She's different. Who is she? That in some ways was also negative, because I know that everyone at Briarwood has been together for basically all of their lives. And so as someone coming in and trying to break into that circle and break into the barriers that people have, and the different, I don't want to say cliques, but cliques and the different friend groups, it was really hard for me, because I would try and go and be friends with one group, and it would be good for about a week or two, but then things would go back to normal, and it would just be them, and I wasn't called anymore, to hang out or to go to the movies or anything. And so, if anything, just being not only a girl who's been in Briarwood for a lot of her, if all of her high school career, but also as a girl who has come to Briarwood as an outsider, it's really important for you to make those connections and really try to break those boundaries and those friend groups. And I know that you love your best friend, and I know that that's perfect, because I have a handful of best friends who I could show y'all right now, but it's not the people that you've always been around and that you're comfortable with. It's the people that make you kind of uncomfortable a little bit, and you step outside of your boundaries, and you are kind of worried about, what others will think if you befriend them. But in those moments is when you make the biggest difference in that person's life, because it's like, oh my gosh, she took the time out to actually come and say hey. Because I remember, this is silly, but I remember in 8th grade, during football season, I met a girl who was deemed as one of the popular girls. And we were hanging out at the football game, and I thought that I was on top of cloud 9. And at the end of the game, she said, okay, well, on Monday, come sit with us at lunch. And oh my goodness, you would have thought that I had won the lottery. So I was like, oh my gosh, I ran home. I was like, Mom, I finally made it. She wants me to come sit with her. I can't believe it. I'm finally going to be with the in crowd. And then Monday came along, and she wasn't trying to be hurtful, but she had just totally forgotten all the business of the weekend that she had invited me to eat lunch with her. And so I was waiting on her to come over and be like, hey, come on, come sit with us. And she never did. And looking back now, it's embarrassing to see how crushed I was at that. But it's just the little things like that, like a random act of kindness here and there, or including someone that you wouldn't normally, or even just as easy as saying hey in the hallway, or sending someone a sweet text. It really means the world to girls and guys for that matter. If there's that really really sweet but a little bit nerdy guy in your class, say hey. I guarantee it's going to mean so much more than you could ever imagine to that person. One thing that's been really encouraging to me in the whole trying to break out of my own shell and trying to break those walls down and break barriers and make friends with the people that I wouldn't normally gravitate to, and just reaching outside my comfort zone is, I think it was Miss Janny's class in 8th grade, and she made us memorize The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. And what the poem is all about is Robert Frost presents this situation where he's walking in the woods and he comes to a fork in the road, and he can go one way, which it's really overgrown and there are thorns and bushes and you can't really see the clear path, and then there's another road or pathway where it's completely open, it's beautiful, there's a clear path you can see for miles up the path. And the main gist of the poem is, which road are you gonna take? Are you gonna take the easy path, the one that's beautiful and has all the daisies and sunflowers and you can see it for miles and you may not learn as much, or are you gonna take the road that's got thorns and it's gonna be hard and you'll probably end up with some cuts and bruises, but you're gonna learn a whole lot? And I just always encourage y'all to, even though it might not be easy, take the road that's been less traveled, like it says in the poem, because you will always learn so much incredibly more when you go that way.